Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is my boomstick.
Here's Johnny.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Righteous! Righteous! Yeah!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Houston, we have a problem.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
All right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Those Film Nerds podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Dierberger. Sam, what's going on?
Well, that was kind of a boring introduction, wasn't it?
You know, I figured we'd keep it light this week.
Yeah. This week is going to be skimpish, to say the least, because we were just talking. We don't have a whole lot of news to talk about. This movie, personally, I don't have a lot of things to say about. Will seems to think that it's like the next I don't know, Whiplash, perhaps.
Oh no.
I might be putting words in his mouth, but
we'll get into that later, though.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, we'll talk about some industry news and or the little bit of there was. You know, last week we had quite a run, really. First time in a long time, it felt like. So of course we had to get nothing this week. I mean,
right.
It's just natural. We got an email, so we'll go over that. So thank you to our emailer.
Yes.
But yeah, Sam, you kind of teased a little bit. What is that movie that you were referencing?
This week we're going to be talking about Sound of Metal.
Your hearing is deteriorating rapidly.
We'll come back. Till then, Lou, we just keep going, okay? No. Lou, play tomorrow and see what it's like, okay? I'm going to be like a clip track. You can play to me.
There we go. Sound of Metal, which, by the way, it should be titled The Sound of Metal, because
it really should.
Even when I was like talking about it, like I'm talking like, this new movie, The Sound of Metal. I'm like, oh crap, nope, Sound of Metal. So, I suppose
it's
on your, I know your grading scale like the back of my hand. I study it every night before I go to bed. So I'm assuming it lost a couple points on that front, but that's all right. Sam?
Absolutely. That was like a 7, maybe.
We should sometime. You should do your grading scale on air for all the people to really know how the inside mind of Sam Dierberger works.
Well, usually when I do something like that, I have to have just watched a movie. Usually,
right.
Well, I shouldn't say that. Usually it's the morning after, because I only watch movies at night. I don't have time during the day like you do to cram in 4 in the afternoon. You have the afternoon schedule. But no, I watch a movie at night and then I'll sleep on it and I'll wake up the next morning and then I'll go through, make a calculation, write a short little blurb, and that's it.
Well,
that's
okay, all right.
Need,
Here we go. So we have just a little tease for next week. We have we're doing Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which comes out on Netflix this Friday. We'll be doing that for our episode next week. Sam, when you watch that, just write down the number you give for each one of your categories, and then we'll go through it on air next week. All right?
Okay. I'll take note of that. That'll be good. That'll be fun.
Okay, cool. But we're not here to talk about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom yet, although I wish we were, because I can't wait for that movie. But we're here to talk Sound of Metal. Even before we get into that, where we'll break down all of our thoughts and get into a recommendation at the end of the episode. Let's talk just a slight amount of industry news, and we'll even talk about the email we had. But Sam, why don't you start us off with industry news? With the little bit we got.
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to the little bit we got, it's not even really, I guess it's industry news. It's not really movie news.
That's all right.
But Jeff Bridges, 71, is yeah, you know, he gave a update on his cancer journey. He has lymphoma, and it looks like his treatment's going pretty well. He turned 71 recently. He obviously lost all his hair. He shaved his head. He got a new puppy, and he says he's feeling good.
Good.
So that's, you know, that's reassuring because, you know, he's one of, I was telling Will before the show, he's like one of the most likable people, I would say, in
absolutely.
Hollywood.
I mean, just him being the dude alone is likable enough. And the fact that, you know, being the dude could totally sour on someone, like someone who's just a curmudgeon would just be like, anytime someone would come up to you and be like, hey man, well, that's like your opinion, or like, because, you know, he gets that all the time. And a lot of people would just be like, oh, come on, I did that a long time ago. We don't talk about that or whatever. But he's like into it.
Right.
Him and Goodman have so many bits about it, and it's hilarious. So we want our good buddy Jeff to get better. So Jeff, feel better, man. We're hoping for you.
Yeah. He said that when he initially announced 2 months ago that he had a good prognosis, and it looks like he's coming along well. So that's very reassuring. Some much needed good news in today's world. But anyway, what was your piece of film news, Will?
Well, this ties into our favorite studio, Disney. Disney essentially dropped a bombshell on us this week and released all of their Star Wars and Marvel content coming out within the next 3 years. They just released it all. Now I'm not going to go through it all, but they had 10 TV shows for Marvel, a handful of movies. They had 10, 15 or something TV shows for Star Wars, a handful of movies there. So just crazy amounts of stuff that they dropped. I guess I just wanted to highlight a few things. And Sam, maybe get your opinions on them.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that the only thing I want to say about the Marvel side of things, the thing that got me most excited is hearing that the Fantastic Four is officially coming to Marvel. And you know, this is exciting for me because they are among my favorite superheroes, and I can't wait to have them displayed on the big screen properly, because 2015's Fantastic with Miles Teller, not so great. So it'll be good to have something hopefully agreeable on screen with those characters, because they deserve it. But with Star Wars, the really interesting thing, Sam, and you might even have an opinion on this, is there's this has been long rumored that an Obi-Wan Kenobi series would be coming out, and it is. They announced it, but that's not so much the interesting part. Ewan McGregor is back as Obi-Wan, so this is between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. But even more interesting, Sam, and here's where I want your thoughts, is Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, is back as Darth Vader.
No.
Yes, he is.
Why?
I don't know.
How?
I guess they just want a reunion.
What? But okay. If you haven't seen Revenge of the Sith yet, I'm sorry. We're gonna have a mild spoiler. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, he is in the bodysuit.
Yep.
And then he goes full James Earl Jones with his voice. So how?
He's gonna be Darth Vader.
Why?
Hayden Christensen
What are they thinking?
Is not good. Not good.
But have you read that George Lucas swears by it to this day? Swears by casting Hayden Christensen. He still says to this day, nope, that was the right call.
It could have been anyone. It literally could have been anyone. And you know the weirdest part about casting Hayden Christensen is that it's not like they couldn't get big names. Like they got Samuel L. Jackson, they got
Yes.
Liam Neeson, they got like Ewan McGregor wasn't huge, but he was getting there.
Right.
I don't understand. Like anyway, he's back. So that'll be interesting. I just wanted to say that. Just get that out there, let people know. But also last thing. Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out soon. And the director, Patty Jenkins, who did the first one as well, is directing a Star Wars movie. So that's interesting. So that's cool. We get a female director, maybe a different take. You know, Lucas is his takes were good, but not very unique, I guess, past the first one. So it'll be good to get a different eye on things. But Sam, do you have any other industry news before we move on?
Well, I read this little thing.
Yeah, go
on
for it.
Screen Rant, which is, I'm not sure what this even means. So maybe you can, I guess, interpret this for me. But Chris Pine said something recently about how he hopes to return as Captain Kirk in Tarantino's Star Trek. Like, that is the title of the article. And it says, Chris Pine admits he has no idea what's going on with Star Trek, but he says he'd love to return to the universe, especially with Quentin Tarantino.
When was this written?
Because the way the article is phrased, this was written 20 hours ago.
Okay.
So would have been December 14th. The way it's phrased, it looks like this is a definite thing. Like Tarantino is definitely developing a Star Trek film. And I don't know what to make of this.
I had, this has obviously been in circulation for years now, right?
Right.
But I had thought this had been canned. I mean, it never even got off the ground, I don't think. Because Tarantino, obviously we know him. He likes to do his own thing. So he wanted to do Star Trek completely different. I mean, he wanted it R-rated and a bunch of other things. And the studio said no, essentially. Like, you can't have it be R-rated. And he wanted to use different characters and everything like that. So I just figured he didn't want to do it. So it was just trashed. Not even trashed because it never got off the ground. This is interesting. Yep. I haven't heard about this. I suppose no, I don't want this to happen, but I guess if it does, it does. So, although if Tarantino were to do this, I guess Chris Pine, he's cool. I like him in the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Tarantino even doing this? I mean, this is I still don't believe this. So,
well, I think, and I've said this for a while now. I think Tarantino is going to make his 10th film, whatever that may be. Could be Star Trek, could be something else, and then he's just going to write novels because we already know. I think this was reported like a few weeks ago. He's writing a novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Like, he's just writing a book based on his own screenplay, which is just kind of like, I don't know. It's a very unusual thing to do, like when it's your own screenplay. But he's one of a kind for sure. He's fiercely independent. So, I'm not opposed to it. I'd just be interested to read his books. Like, what would his books be like? What is his prose like?
Yeah. I would assume when he's writing his books, if he does this, that they'll be very similar to his screenplays. I mean, he approaches writing a movie or writing a screenplay just like writing a book. It doesn't matter how the story is told as long as it is told in some way or some fashion. So His books will be quirky just like his screenplays are, and it'll be awesome. And I've always said this. I'm sure you'll agree with me. I think Tarantino's a much better writer than he is director. Not to say he's a bad director by any means.
Right.
But his writing style and his way of telling a story is so unique that it obviously plays itself to the screenplay quite nicely, but it would even play itself maybe nicer to a book, where he can really do what he wants to do. A screenplay, you're kind of limited almost to a certain amount. Not that a book you can't just go on for 5,000 pages, right? But in a screenplay, you want generally to be under 2 hours and 30 minutes for Tarantino movies, 240, whatever. I mean, that's a certain amount of pages. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Right.
I just hope he doesn't make Star Trek. I think
Right.
that'd be boring. To keep it to the movie side of things, I think that'd just be boring. We've seen Star Trek. I mean, we haven't seen Tarantino's version of Star Trek, but I would just say do something original. We like your original work. So
I don't necessarily feel like it would be boring. I just think it would be like the purist in me doesn't want to see it. You know what I mean?
okay, that's fair. I'll agree with that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a franchise guy.
No, and that's what he wanted to like make sure that everyone knew he wasn't really doing a franchise thing by like having Star Trek or his version of Star Trek be completely different, but it still wouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like it's still in that universe.
Right. Well, I feel the same way about like a Kill Bill Volume 3 even. Like, I don't really want to see that either.
No. Nope, agreed.
I want to see something original.
Is that still a thing or no?
I don't know.
Oh, I hope not.
I think he's just gonna make us wait in suspense for like 3 or 4 years, and then we'll see what comes out of it.
Perfect.
But what I'm reading here is that it is probably definitely happening. It's just a question of, is Tarantino gonna direct it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Well, wait, I'm just gonna look this up real quick. Kill Bill Volume 3. Okay, it is not on Letterboxd, so that means something. It's not announced yet. But Sam, should we?
It is on IMDb though. It is on IMDb.
Is it pinned as a director or no?
It has him. All it says is writers Quentin Tarantino characters, as in he wrote the characters, obviously.
Right.
But does that mean he's going to write a script? Is someone else going to write a script? Is someone else going to direct it? That'll be interesting to see.
Good question. Well, there's not many people left of the Kill Bill, and Bill's dead. He was killed. Another spoiler, but so that'll be interesting. Sam, do you have anything else, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
All right, cool. Well, we got an email, so thank you to the emailer. Again, you can always email us at thosefilmnerds@gmail.com. This one says, Sam, we should watch a movie called Safety on Disney Plus. It's about a college football player from Clemson, I want to say. I think it is. It doesn't say in the email, but I'm pretty sure it's Clemson. With a scholarship on the line, but he has to take care of his little brother, so he sneaks him on campus, essentially. After the mother enters an extended stay at drug rehab facility. So it's just essentially, I'm assuming it's going to be a heartwarming tearjerker type thing. And then the emailer just says it's college football postseason and college football movie. Makes sense. I should just say this because I'm a big Iowa State fan. And Iowa State has a chance at going to the college football playoffs, which not only has not been done, but Iowa State generally one of the worst football teams in the nation. So the fact that they are have the potentiality, not a great one, but the potential of going excites me a lot.
Yeah.
But yes, emailer, I will check out Safety on Disney Plus. we'll see how good it's gonna be.
You know, we were talking about titles. Safety is an excellent title for a football movie.
I'm assuming
hadn't
he
thought
is a
about that one
safety.
before. Yeah, or even like safety, as in you get tackled in your own end zone, kind of thing.
Right.
You know, what does that mean metaphorically? Like,
well, here we go. It's the story of Ray McElrath Bay, a freshman football player for Clemson University. Okay, it was Clemson, who secretly raised his younger brother on campus after his home life became too unsteady. All right, interesting. Okay, cool. Safety on Disney Plus. We'll have to check that out. I'm not familiar with anyone in it, but there we go. All right,
interesting.
Cool.
Thank you, emailer.
Reginald Hudlin. He did Marshall, the Thurgood Marshall movie with Mr. Chadwick Boseman, who we will visit this Friday. So there we go. There's a time.
Oh.
All right. Cool.
Oh, that's
Sam,
exciting.
should we talk Sound of Metal?
Let's talk some Sound of Metal.
I can't hear you. Do you understand me? I can't. I'm deaf. I'm deaf. Found a place.
I think it's important that you stay here with us right now, Ruben. We're looking for a solution to this. Not this.
I need you to wait for me. Okay? You're it for me. You're my heart. You're it for me. Okay? You gotta wait for me.
There we go. Sound of Metal. Not the Sound of Metal. Because that would make too much sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was thinking this movie should just be called Sound.
Just Sound?
Just straight up Sound.
That's fair. I mean, there isn't much to do with metal. Not a whole ton, at least. But,
yeah.
Obviously, Sound of Metal out on Amazon Prime, so go check it out and come back to this if you want to hear our spoiler-free thoughts later in the episode. But for now, we'll stick to spoiler-free. And let's start with general thoughts. Sam, what are your thoughts on Sound of Metal?
Sound of Metal is not at all what you would expect going in. Even for the first 20 to 30 minutes, you're like, oh, okay. You know, this is, you kind of have it figured out. Like, it's going to be about music. It's going to be about a drummer who's slowly losing his hearing. And then it takes kind of it's a turn. It's not an unsurprising turn, but it's more like it's this sort of movie. I've seen this before kind of film. It's very much in the vein of a quick, heartwarming, protagonist learns something about himself, gains a perspective about something, kind of thing.
Right.
So, I think this movie's fine. It's certainly worth a watch, I would say. What are your initial thoughts?
I just like to just a quick story while I was watching this. I watched this maybe 5 days ago or so, and after the movie was over, the credits started rolling, and I go, that movie reminded me a lot of The Place Beyond the Pines. And I look at the director, and the only other thing that this dude has written aside from Sound of Metal was The Place Beyond the Pines. So that was just a funny, that's how I could just tell just based on Sound of Metal, Place Beyond the Pines as well is very, it's a totally 3-act movie, and you can tell when it turns from act 1 to act 2 to act 2 to act 3. It's very obvious, right? And in that sense, I guess I liked that. It was structured nicely. So it was easy to follow. There's no question marks ever. I mean, it was always not that I would say it was paint by numbers. Maybe Sam, you would, but it it was easy. It didn't ever leave you confusing, and it definitely could have, especially with the source material like it is. But yeah, Sound of Metal. I thought I guess I can start by the acting was great. I thought Riz Ahmed did a pretty good job, and his support, his girlfriend, whom I'm forgetting the name of, Lou, right? Olivia Cook, the actress. I thought she was great.
Lou.
And I did a little bit of research after watching Sound of Metal. They used a lot of deaf actors. I would assume a lot of the supporting cast, many of the children, I would guess were all deaf at the school he visited a couple of times. I would assume some of the people at the place he was staying, I'm assuming some of them were deaf. I'm not sure about the leader of the place, although he hasn't acted in many things, so I don't. He might have been deaf. I thought that was cool that the director Darius Martyr kind of paid respect to those to those who are deaf. So that was cool. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
But I thought overall, I thought the movie was very sound, and I thought I didn't really intend to do that. That's my fault. I thought it was good. I thought it was well-rounded. I thought everyone did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
The screenplay, like I said, albeit it was structured nicely and it was easy to follow. Screenplay was probably the worst part. Not to say that it was bad or that I thought it was bad. I just thought some of the dialogue for a movie with a bunch of deaf people was a little strange to me. Even the conversation scenes, with Riz Ahmed, the main character, and his, the person that he's staying with, Joe, they're both talking out loud, which it was kind of odd to me. I know,
right.
Ruben, Riz Ahmed's character, he's still learning sign language.
Right.
But he seems to get it at the end, and they're still talking out loud for the most part.
Right.
Which was slightly
well, that's what made me think that. I think that Paul Raci is who played Joe. That's why I think he's not actually deaf, because I think a deaf person who they're just not, they've kind of forgotten how to properly form sentences, because he can speak very clearly, and with Ruben, the character of Ruben, it kind of makes sense, that he's very slowly losing his hearing, and he still kind of remembers how to properly form a sentence,
right,
and make it sound non-slurry and everything. So that kind of made sense. But the other thing I wanted to point out was, I don't know how you watched this movie, but it was almost just so perfect, because I watched this movie on my laptop with headphones on, like not just earbuds, but headphones.
Okay.
And that was excellent.
Really?
Because you're not hearing anything else, during, because the movie is silent for, maybe 30-40% of it.
Yeah.
And you're just hearing nothing. It's like noise canceling.
Right.
And so, the sound mixing is absolutely commendable. Just fantastic.
That's cool. That's good to hear, actually. It's pretty obvious that it would be, but that's something in a movie like Sound of Metal where the person is going deaf. I mean, you're obviously thinking going into it that, hey, there's going to be some parts where it's going to be muted. Obviously the sound's going to be turned down. There's going to be some ringing, etc. So that'd be something where going into it, I would think, well, this is obviously going to be well done, but there's still the aspect that you have to capitalize on that. And I thought, they did a good job. The sound mixing was great. Which, if the sound mixing is bad in this movie failed. So I guess you didn't completely fail in that aspect, because yes, you were right. I thought that was well done. And even, it's kind of you know what? We're just going to go into spoilers. Go watch Sound of Metal. Come back.
We're coming right in. Yeah.
Even at the end when he gets his, again, spoilers for Sound of Metal, when he gets his hearing implants, and we have that odd sound he's hearing, he's hearing fake sound almost, and it's really staticky and almost robotic. Yeah. That was well done too. And Sam, I want your opinion on this. You get those or no sound at all? What would you take?
Oh my God. Well, I will say again, it's like that's where the movie really does well, is it creates an immersive experience for people who can hear.
Absolutely.
For what it would be like to be deaf or even have these implants, right? Because the implants, like you said, they're staticky, they're metallic, and they sound just awful on the ears, especially me wearing headphones. It was like, it's just right on your ears and it's just horrible to listen to. And you would be hearing that. You don't realize this, but like you would be hearing that all day.
That's all you would hear. Yeah.
That's all you hear. It's not just like a little 10-minute, 5-minute scene. It's all day. And for me personally, I would much rather just learn how to, work around being deaf than to have to listen to that.
Right.
Right. I don't know. What about you?
We'll get into it a little bit more later about what Ruben does, obviously. But, gosh, if I had that, I would need, and it seemed like he did, he took it off when he went to bed, right? I would need something like, I'd need to be able to take it off easy. If I was at like a loud party or something like that, like he was, it'd need to be turn off immediately because, oh boy, that was annoying. And it should have well done by the movie because it should have been annoying. The movie did a good job with that. But Sam, I want to get your thoughts on some more specifics. What did you think of the acting or directing or screenplay? Just go into it a little bit.
Yeah. More. Well, the acting initially, I was, I wasn't too on board with both of the leads, Ahmed and Olivia Cook. I thought they were both kind of, and now looking back, I mostly attributed this to the screenplay, but they were both kind of, those early scenes. The first act is really melodramatic and really over the top.
Right. They
get really angry with each other for no real apparent reason. Like everything seems completely overblown. And they overthink things, which I suppose you could say, well, he's kind of in a situation that is really unusual, and they're professional musicians and that's how they live, but still it was just the audience doesn't really understand that quite yet. The other thing that goes along with that is Ruben's drug addiction and his recovery. And it's insinuated that he had been on heroin for a long time and he's recovering, but then he smokes a cigarette and then Lou just like freaks out at him. And it says, "Oh my God, we need to get him in like a place." And it's like, really, that's your first priority? Like, he needs to learn how to be a deaf person. Like, I'm still not clear on the logic behind what they did in the first act. And again, I attribute this to the screenplay, but it's like, okay, he's losing his hearing rapidly. He wants the implants, but he can't pay for it right away. And they're supposed to go on tour. And so what she does is she puts him in a place for deaf people who are also drug addicts. Which is kind of a pretty niche category. Like that's very
niche group right there.
Yes, like very it's a very tight knit group right there. But it's like, I'm thinking like for Lou, what was she expecting to happen there? Like, okay, he learns how to function as a deaf person, sure, but is he didn't completely relapse. It's not like he went on heroin again.
Right.
what is she trying to accomplish there? In terms of the tour and their life together. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. That's a good point. And I think, you're attributing that to a lot of the screenplay. I'll even say it maybe a little bit the direction too. It slightly felt a little rushed to me. And I liked this movie. I really did. It felt just maybe a little rushed in some areas. We heard right before one of the concerts when they're setting out t-shirts or something like that, just some merchandise at one of their concerts.
Yeah. And
then we see his hearing go at one point. We hear some ringing. You can hear people talking still, but it's muffled, right?
Yeah.
And then 2 scenes later, he's completely deaf. And then right. 2 scenes after that, we're already at the place for the deaf people. I think.
Yes.
I think if we had some more, and I'm not. This is one of the times maybe I'm saying the movie should have been a little bit longer, just to get some more in there.
Yeah.
I think if you have just maybe even 1 or 2 more scenes of just some dialogue between Lou and Ruben, just kind of explaining what's happening, and we don't really like just the movie explaining things to us, but you need some sort of dialogue to say you're going here because of this reason. I mean, we know he's going there because he needs to learn how to hear, but what are we going to do after, that type of thing? Yeah, I know what you're saying exactly. So I think
yeah,
just slowing down a little bit could have helped this movie. And even later in the movie, again, spoilers, when he's at the place for a while and he kind of just does a 180, everything's going well, or we think he's going to the school, he's helping the kids, he's finally adjusting to living at this place. He's making friends, whatever, he's communicating with people through sign language, and that's all great. And then he just leaves, he gets his implants and he leaves. So that felt slightly rushed as well.
Yeah.
Why did
we do need to get into that scene.
Go for it.
That is kind of wouldn't you consider that probably the climax of the movie? Even though it seems that this was one of my major problems with the film. And again, it goes back to the screenplay. Even though it seems to me that the climax of the film should have been him deciding, should I get the implants? Should I get the implants? That should have been the climax. Instead, the climax becomes him already getting the irreversible implant surgery. and then he just goes back to Joe at the house and sits him down and says, well, I did it. And Joe gets very angry at him for doing that. And it's there was no prior consideration on Ruben's part about this. And so he never talked to Joe about it beforehand. And that's why the screenplay is so uneven, because he says, he says, I did the deed. And Joe responds with, what deed? So Joe was completely unaware of what he was intending to do. And then he gets all angry. So it's the audience can't really follow along with Joe's anger because it was never discussed between them before. And it's we have significant dialogue between Joe and Ruben heading up to this point. They talk about a lot of things.
Absolutely.
But life is really frustrating for me.
Yeah, no, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, again, I think that that branches a lot from the screenplay. Just need a little bit tightening up, and some of the pacing too. This is a directorial debut, so you're gonna find some issues like that. I think there's definitely potential here in Darius Martyr, though. I think he could definitely. I would say he could direct some more things. I saw some things that I liked and definitely could build off of in the future. I'll just say that let's not get into the ending yet, but I thought I thought the first two acts, I mean, I differ from you in this respect, Sam. I thought the first two acts were pretty good. I liked them a lot. I mean, I've said my complaints earlier, but I thought most of the interactions between Lou and Ruben were good. And, you know, Ruben learning that he is deaf or learning that he's about to be deaf. I thought a lot of Riz Ahmed's reactions and emotions seemed genuine, and, you know, he's doing a lot. He's yelling, screaming, crying, and throwing stuff. So you're doing all the major categories to get yourself an Oscar nomination there, Riz Ahmed. And I liked a lot of the building blocks there. I thought getting to the place where he stayed, as well as, you know, becoming acclimated to his life there. I thought that was all pretty well executed. Between the first and second acts were definitely my favorite. The third act fell off for me a little bit. I didn't think it was as strong. It seemed a little off to me. For a second, I wasn't even sure what country we were in. But Sam,
I was like, what?
What were some parts that you liked about Sound of Metal?
Well, okay, yeah. The place I differ from you on was, you know, you said the first two acts were good. I thought the first act was too melodramatic, like I said. I thought the third act took some turns that were kind of ill-advised. But I think the second act was really, really solid. And I think it turned my expectations nicely, because it went from this movie about a musician who's struggling with his hearing loss to just being about a person who's struggling with hearing loss. Okay. And him starting to, you know, I'm thinking specifically of the writing scene where he has to sit in a room and just write for a few hours, and his frustration with that and eventual consolation with that to be able to, I guess, figure out what life is like. The relationships that he builds with the other people at the camp is really well done. You know, he starts giving music lessons to deaf children, which is very important. And at that point, by the way, I thought it was like, oh, okay, he's gonna start, you know, he's able to give drumming lessons to children. He's gonna start figuring out how to drum while still being deaf. Right? That's where I thought he was going with that. Like, he's going to figure out a way to pull this off. You know, like Beethoven went deaf towards the end of his life. Like, it is possible. It's difficult, but it's possible. And so I thought that's where the movie was going, but it takes this weird turn in the third act with the implants and everything like that, as we discussed. So yeah, I would say the second act was really, really solid.
Yep, I guess my defense for the third act is, and it sounds rather like a cop-out, but is that wasn't the story they were telling. You know, this whole time when he's at this place, Joe is telling him, like, you have to accept, and I played it in the trailer, obviously couldn't see it, but he says, we're trying to work on this, referring to the brain, not this, referring to your hearing. You know, the whole time Joe is trying to convince Ruben that, hey, being deaf is not the end of the world. Like, we still function fine. And you know, Ruben, through the first two acts, even in the second act, when we think he's kind of coming around, there's still parts of him that want to have hearing and want to be who he was before he became deaf. And I think, to play devil's advocate for that third act, that's why that third act was important, is because you'd have to write it differently otherwise, which you could do. Otherwise, you know, he hadn't come around on being deaf yet until the third act, until interacting with Lou more, and, you know, going to that big party I referred to earlier, and seeing how Lou had been succeeding without him. Not that she didn't need him necessarily, but that she was doing fine without him, and he still needed to accept his new version of his new life. as Lou had accepted hers. And I think that's almost what, again, I didn't enjoy the third act as much as the first two, but I think that's why the third act is important. And obviously at the end we see Ruben, which again, didn't like third act as much, but the final moment was one of my favorites of the movie, where it was completely calm and still, and there was no sound. If I'm remembering, I don't think there was even music. Where he takes his implant. Right. Well, he doesn't take the implants out of his ears, but he takes the hearing device out off of his head, and just sits on the bench with people walking in the background and doesn't notice them. I like that part. So I guess that's my defense for the third act, is that he hadn't come around on being deaf yet and still needed that.
Right.
He saw how great his life was inside, but he thought it could be better outside, realized it wasn't. Anyway, sorry, I was talking too long.
No, but like, would you say that's like, there's like a cautionary tale there? Because the other thing we're leaving out is that he sold essentially all of his possessions,
right,
for the implants, which like, the implants, I guess it improves his quality of life slightly, because as you mentioned, he can always just turn the device off. Like, it's not like he's stuck with that sound 24/7.
Right.
But he sold all of his possessions, and he is not, he's obviously not wealthy. His band is not doing amazingly.
Well, he has nothing. He sold everything.
They're making a living. So it's like, is that a cautionary tale necessarily? Because he's not. The movie just has so many confused messages.
Okay.
To me.
Yep.
To me. Because it's like, what is that saying at the end when he takes the device off his head? Is that saying like, oh, this is his new life, he has to live with it? Or is it saying, deafness is not a handicap after all? When it's like, well, it's not the deafness that's,
I think,
it's the implant. You know what I mean?
See what you're saying. I think it's both of those a little bit. I think it's really about acceptance. I think it's about, like, you have to accept what you're given.
Right.
And sometimes it can lead you down new paths, which he obviously, he enjoyed the path he was going on for a while. Like you were saying, he liked teaching the kids music and so on. So that's what I would say. I guess the third act / ending was really about him finally accepting his new path, if you want to call it, and how he was going to adapt to that. I suppose the only thing is, after the movie, I was like, well, there goes $80,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Because symbolically, it looked like him taking off his hearing devices on his head was like, I'm done with these forever. Yes, like you said, he always has the opportunity to put them back on. That's not gone. He still has them. They're still in his hands, but symbolically, it seemed like he's done with them. So I guess that part was a little bit like, well, a little bit of a rash decision there, I would say, Ruben. Maybe we could have thought this through just a little bit.
Sure. Well, it's like, it's an $80,000 mistake. People make much worse than $80,000 mistakes.
Sure.
In day-to-day life. So it's not like he's, I don't know. It's not like he's fundamentally changed because he made a bad decision.
Right.
Also, it's not clear what the correct decision is in that context.
Nope. But I think there is no correct decision really it's whatever Ruben thought was best for him. I think in the end he decided that deafness was best for him. So I guess you could interpret it a number of ways. What else is there to talk about? Again, we said it, like, the sound mixing is great. That's probably the best technical aspect of this movie. What else do you have to say, Sam, as a movie as a whole?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but like I said, the acting really picks up as the movie goes on. Like in the first act, again, it's attributable to the screenplay. We've been saying this repeatedly, but in the first act, it's like overblown. It seems like, oh my God, they're just overacting all of this. It's because of the dialogue, basically.
Right.
But in the second and third act, it's really, really good. I criticized that scene between Joe and Ruben, but both of their acting there, their physical acting is really good. So yeah, there's something there. And Lou is, whoever plays Lou, Olivia Cook, is that her name?
Yep, Olivia
She's
Cook.
fantastic.
Yeah, nice. I would say I thought a cool,
really good.
I thought a cool scene was all of at their deaf home, all of them around the table after Ruben has kind of he's been accepted and he knows some sign language. I thought a cool scene is there is sound, I should say, but all we hear is their hand movements or them doing a little bit of sign language. There's not much sound, I should say. I thought that was cool. Like we just hear them laughing and whatever sign language they're doing that, presses two hands together or whatever. I thought that was really cool. Again, most of the stuff with the kids was nice. I thought the kind of turning point scene or one of the turning point scenes, that's another thing. There's so many turning point scenes. Was Ruben taking the child with who is deaf out of the room and he's banging on the slide as the kid's kind of pressing his ear on top of the slide. I thought that was a cool moment. There's a lot of, you said it at the beginning, Sam, there's a lot of feel good moments in here. And I guess I bid on that is really what it comes down to. So if you're gonna bite, this might be the movie for you. Sam, I
mean, if you like final thoughts.
Yeah, you give yours. Right.
Yeah. If you, yes. Okay. If you like heartwarming, drama / I would say mild dramas, because the stakes aren't super high here.
There's dramatic elements though.
Just kind of good dramatic elements, just kind of heartwarming tale, for the second act at least. Then this movie is for you. It's not anything special, I don't think. I think it could have been a lot more. Had we tuned up the screenplay and given it more time to really flesh out its ideas. But, it's an okay movie. Wrap-up thoughts for you, Will.
Yeah, I would say I really enjoyed this, especially in the moment. Maybe as I get further and further away from it, it's easy to see where it goes wrong and talking about it as well. I'm still going to give this a high grade because I still really enjoyed it. But there are issues to it. But again, like you said, Sam, it's a feel-good movie for the most part. And I thought, the acting was great. We said it. A lot of technical aspects were great. And I could definitely see the director here, going on to do some cool work in the future. I mean, this is definitely a bold idea to do something like this. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he has coming. But Sam, should we hit some ratings? Some star ratings?
Let's hit some ratings.
Cool.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start us off. I'm gonna go out of 5, obviously. Half stars included. I'm gonna go with a 4 for now, and it's teetering on the edge to a 3.5. But yeah, for now I'm gonna go with a 4. And Sam, where are you at?
I'm gonna go 2.5 because, like I said, only one of the 3 acts are really solid, worthwhile. So, 2.5. It's still probably worth a watch if you're into that kind of thing, but it's not.
Right.
I don't think it's anything for general audiences to enjoy.
Okay, cool. Sam, what do you say? Should we get some recommendations in here and then get out of here?
Yeah, let's get some quick recommends in. All
right,
I actually have something. I have something prepared.
Go for it. Go for it.
This is a rare occurrence. about a month ago, I finished a book called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And Cormac McCarthy is in the film world is famous for writing the novel No Country for Old Men, which the Coen brothers based their 2007 masterpiece on. So I need to get around to reading that. But Blood Meridian is kind of like considered his best. It's also considered like one of the 12 great American novels, along with like Moby Dick and Huck Finn and all those. Oh, cool. So yeah, I don't know what classification it has for that, but it's the most recent. It was published in the 80s, but it takes place in like, the 1860s, and it's really, really good. It's difficult to get into at first, but it's very fascinating and kind of cinematic in scope. And someone needs to make a movie out of it. They've been trying for decades. But yeah, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Check it out.
Cool. Nice. Well, I recently, actually it was yesterday as we're recording this. I rewatched Best Picture nominee from 2016 called The Big Short. Really love this movie. I liked it. I liked it when I watched it the first time. I loved it when I watched it the second time. And definitely check it out. Adam McKay. I can't wait to see what he has to do in the future. Obviously, we saw something, or we've talked about his newest movie coming out, I want to say in a couple of years. It has that amazing cast of like Leo and Chris Evans recently joined. I think Meryl Streep is involved, Jennifer Lawrence. It has like everyone. We've talked about it before. I don't remember when though. So I rewatched The Big Short. It's based on the 2008 recession, which is a really interesting period of time. At least for me, I find it fascinating. Not in a good way, but I find it interesting in scope and how it was allowed to happen. So I rewatched that. Really, really good, really tight. Love McKay's writing style and directing style, although albeit very flashy, so it will not be for everyone. Loved it. The Big Short. So Sam, with that being said, where can I find you on Letterboxd?
You can find me if you're looking for whatever reason. You can find me at letterboxd.com/sjdierberger. Where can I find you, Will?
You can find me on that same domain, except at willspalding. And you can find us in a metal band because we recently started one, and we're blowing up. We're huge in Bangladesh, not so much in the rest of the world, but we're big over there. But you can also find us at anchor.fm/thosefilmnerds.
One of us is losing our hearing.
You decide who. You can find us at anchor.fm/thosefilmnerds and thosefilmnerds@gmail.com and thosefilmnerds on Instagram and thosefilmnerds at any podcast platform and on YouTube. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Sam, until next time.
Keep watching movies, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you. Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone.